Hey everybody, welcome to a new video. I'm going to try to explain let me just sum up my process and why it's so important to do layouts, especially if you're doing big projects, and the do's and don'ts. So, for the layout stage, always keep your layouts handy and make sure they don't have to be perfect. It'll probably be hard to see, but so you guys can see my layouts. If you're doing big projects, keep in mind, have a rough sketch down first, have what you want planned out in your head. That's the most important thing that you can do. Especially with big projects like posters, for instance, you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff you got to squeeze in, and especially if it's on a bigger or smaller piece, you have to have that layout figured out already in your head and figure out what exactly you can do. So keep in mind that some things do not have to be perfect, but you do have to have a balance on bigger projects and keep those layouts in mind. My advice is keep it simple, and when it comes down to posters or anything else, kind of treat it like a comics gig. Have your layouts be small enough and worked out all your kinks in that layout stage before you get to the final product, when you start drawing, painting, and figuring out your characters and what stuff you want to do. For instance, I'm a painter, so I have to, on bigger projects, and also keep in mind, you have to also, another tip is make sure that you're going to stick to one project at a time. My biggest problem is I like to do so much at a little point, and it makes it a lot harder. And it basically makes it very impossible. So make sure you can stick to one project at a time, and maybe another tip is maybe start on small stuff. Work on mini pieces first before you start going into the big stuff, because it's a lot more draining to do the bigger stuff, especially if you're painting or drawing or whatever. Doing bigger stuff, there's a lot more detail, a lot more stuff that you have to cram in there, and it's a lot harder. So keep in mind that if you can keep it simple, know your time limits, and all that, that's really the best option for you. So another tip that I can give you guys is, for any artists out there that really wants to do bigger stuff, bigger projects, is make sure when you do your layout stage, do it multiple times. You don't have to, you can do a rough layout and iron it down and maybe do another going over that, kind of like doing it in layers or tracing. It can be helpful. My biggest problem with doing layouts is sometimes I do the rough layout and then immediately go to paper. Sometimes it can turn out good, and a lot of times it can turn out pretty terrible. So my biggest tip is keep in mind you can do multiple layers. Like, for instance, with these the Umbrella Academy, I went through several different layouts, figuring out poses, trying to figure out how to do certain things, and especially with how the layout, it's not going to completely look exactly how you originally wanted it. It'll change over time. Sometimes that's the best thing. Always do layouts, because they really make things better. And also, if you're doing someone else's characters, make sure you have a clear understanding of their character first in design. If you have to use yourself as reference, go ahead and try, especially with this poster right here, this project. It's basically the definition of you have to understand someone's characters and maybe draw them. You can trace them, perfect the process that way. Understand that you can't do it all. Especially if you're doing someone else's work, use whatever tools you have to. That's another tip to your advantage. Understand color is another thing, but doing other people's designs, branch out. That's another thing. For bigger projects, you don't have to cram everything and rush in the anatomy and rush in stuff. Especially with this poster, you can tell that this was a lot of cramming stuff in and not a whole lot of poses, not a lot of stuff. You can see a lot of, it's very good, but it's, you have to keep in a lot of things. With every project, you have so much you can do. Change out your layouts, do something different each time. It doesn't have to be the same thing. Posing can be different, characters can be different. Branch out, mixture of games, realism, TV shows, like the Stranger Things poster here. Try out your layouts in different ways. Figure out what you want from this singular project, if it's a big or medium-sized project. No matter what it is, figure it out ahead of time. That's another tip I can give you. So you're not going mad trying to figure stuff out when you put it to page. Like, branch out, do as much as you can to really try different styles, try different things. First thing I would do if I was, you guys, is basically use what's at your disposal and keep it simple. Try your layouts in layers, obviously, but, branch out. Do video games. Do anything realism. Do whatever style you can get your hands on. Any layout you can come up with, try it. Make sure you know what you're doing. Understand the style before doing it. Like the Owl House here, or Sonic, or even Gravity Falls. Understand the crux of that style before doing it. Then try doing layouts, understanding the characters before drawing them, figuring out what's going to make your project different, what's going to make it better. Even small projects, doing singular characters. Figure out the crux of the layout of what you would want first. And don't be afraid that it's going to not turn out as well as you would hope the first few times. It's usually going to be that way. But till next time, guys, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I got a few videos coming up soon.